In 2025, Merriam-Webster named AI Slop the word of the year. Not AI itself, not hallucination, not prompt engineering. Slop. The term spread because it named something people were already experiencing, a particular quality of AI output that is technically competent, broadly inoffensive, and somehow completely hollow. You read it and nothing lands. You use it and something feels off. You can't always say what's wrong, but you know immediately that it's wrong. Here is what almost nobody has explained correctly. AI slop is not a quality problem. It is not a prompting problem. It is not a problem that better models will automatically fix. AI slop is what happens when the operator is absent. Not absent from the keyboard, absent from the process. The person is typing, but the decisions that would make the output theirs, the judgment, the direction, the specific human intelligence that makes one thing different from another thing, none of that made it into the session. Understanding why slop exists tells you something precise about what you have to bring to every session that Claude cannot bring for you. Why AI slop exists and what it actually tells you. The channel has spent a lot of time on what Claude can do. This episode is about what Claude cannot do and why that matters more than most people realize. Claude is an extraordinarily capable instrument. But an instrument without a director produces the base iteration. Not wrong, not broken, just the most statistically central version of whatever you asked for. The output that offends no one, surprises no one, and lands nowhere in particular. The base iteration is Claude's default. Slop is the base iteration, scaled. This episode names the mechanism, and it names the one thing that resolves it, which is not a better prompt, not a smarter model, and not a different tool. Here is the loop that produces slop. Step 1. The operator wants output. They ask Claude what they should make. Claude suggests 3 options in the genre. The operator picks one. Step 2. They ask Claude how to approach it. Claude outlines a structure. The operator approves it. Step 3. They ask Claude to write it. Claude writes it in Claude's default register, using Claude's default structure, hitting Claude's default beats. The operator has been present at every stage. They have typed every message. And yet nothing they know, nothing they believe, nothing that is specific to them made it into the output. Every decision was outsourced to Claude. Every decision Claude made was a probability-weighted average of what it has seen. This is not a bad prompt. This is an absent operator. The output is slop not because Claude failed, but because the human who was supposed to be directing the session was not directing anything. They were approving Claude's choices. That is a different job, and it produces a different kind of output. Here is the loop in its simplest form. The slop loop. What to make? Ask Claude. Claude answers from its own distribution. How to make it? Ask Claude. Claude answers from its own distribution. Make it arrow. Ask Claude arrow. Claude produces the base iteration of itself. The output of this loop is Claude imitating Claude, directed by Claude. The operator is a relay, not a director. Every fork in the road was handed to Claude. The result is statistically coherent and distinctively nobody's. The operator's version. What to make? Operator decides from their own judgment and knowledge. How to make it? Operator sets the conditions. Claude executes. Make it. Claude produces the operator's intention, not its own default. The only difference is where the decisions come from. 3 things that explain why the slop loop produces what it produces. First, Claude has a base iteration. Every Anthropic product has a default output, the thing it produces when no strong operator signal has been applied. This is not a flaw, it is the floor. The base iteration is competent, usable, and completely generic. It is what you get when the ceiling is never reached. Second, Claude optimizes for the most recent input. When you ask Claude what to make, it produces its best guess given no external judgment to anchor to. When you then ask it how to approach that thing, it optimizes for the thing it just suggested. By the time output is generated, you have a fully closed loop. Claude's suggestion, optimized by Claude, executed by Claude. Third, the human's judgment was never inserted. This is the actual problem. Not the model, not the prompts. The operator's specific knowledge, what they know about the audience, what they believe about the topic, what they think is interesting or important or true, was never offered as input. Claude cannot generate that from inside itself. It can only use what it's given. Two people, same brief. One produces slop, one doesn't. The brief. A newsletter piece on how AI is changing knowledge work. Operator A asks Claude what angle would work best. Claude suggests 3: the productivity angle, the job displacement angle, the augmentation angle. Operator A picks augmentation, Claude's recommendation. They ask Claude how to structure it. Claude suggests a hook, 3 points, a conclusion. Operator A approves. They ask Claude to write it. Claude writes a thorough, balanced, carefully hedged piece on AI augmentation with a hook, 3 points, and a conclusion. Technically correct, completely forgettable. It could have been written by anyone, about anything, for no one in particular. Operator B knows something specific. Their audience is mid-career professionals who have been told AI will help them, have tried it, and felt vaguely embarrassed that it didn't obviously change their work the way they expected. That is a specific reader with a specific experience in a specific moment. Operator B tells Claude that before a word is written. They tell Claude the angle, not the augmentation angle, but the why it felt like less than advertised and what you missed angle. They tell Claude the register, not reassuring, not cautionary, just honest. Claude writes a completely different piece, because the operator gave it something that was not already inside Claude. The work did not change, the brief did not change. The operator's judgment made the difference. Here is what the Slop diagnosis actually reveals. Slop is not a quality failure. It is a direction failure. When you see AI output that feels hollow, that could have been written by anyone, that is technically correct and somehow lands nowhere, you are seeing evidence that operator judgment was absent. The model did its job. Nobody did the human job. The human job is not typing. It is not approving Claude's suggestions. It is not iterating on output until it feels less wrong. The human job is knowing something Claude doesn't, knowing your audience specifically, knowing what you actually believe about the topic, knowing what you think is interesting versus what is merely accurate, knowing what you are willing to say that other people in this space won't say. That knowledge cannot be generated from inside Claude. It can only be given to Claude. And until it is, Claude will produce the base iteration, which is to say, the most coherent version of the average. AI slop, defined, not as a quality problem, as a structural one. AI slop is the output of a session in which the operator's specific judgment about the audience, the angle, the register, what matters and what doesn't, was never inserted as input. The model produced a probability-weighted output in the absence of strong direction. The result is technically competent, generically correct, and distinctively nobody's. The opposite of slop is not polish. It is not better prompting. It is not more iterations. The opposite of slop is operator presence. Specific knowledge inserted before generation that gives Claude something to optimize toward that it could not have generated on its own. 3 categories of operator knowledge that Claude cannot generate from inside itself. First, audience specificity. Not knowledge workers or small business owners or people interested in AI. A specific reader in a specific situation with a specific prior experience that this piece is written for. The more precisely the operator can describe the actual person, the further the output moves from the generic center. Second, a genuine position. Not the balanced view, not the comprehensive overview, not the well-rounded take. What the operator actually thinks, what they believe is true, interesting, or important that other people in the space are not saying. Claude can argue any position with equal fluency. It cannot generate the position the operator holds. That has to come from outside. Third, a non-default register. Claude's default register is measured, thorough, and careful. That register serves many purposes and fails many others. The operator who needs something dry or urgent or plain-spoken or technically precise or warmly direct has to name that register before Claude defaults to its own. The base iteration always wins unless the operator explicitly replaces it. This is not an argument that AI-generated content is inherently worse than human-generated content. It is an argument about what the operator has to bring. The same model that produces slop for an absent operator can produce something genuinely distinctive for an operator who inserts real judgment. The output ceiling is set by the quality of the direction, not the quality of the model. Better models raise the floor. They do not raise the ceiling if the operator is not there. This is also not an argument against using Claude for content generation. The operators who produce the best output with Claude are often producing it faster than the ones who produce average output without it. The speed advantage is real. So is the quality gap between operators who direct and operators who approve. And this is not a prompting problem. You cannot prompt engineer your way to a specific audience or a genuine position. Those come from outside. The operator who does not know what they actually think about a topic will not find out by asking Claude to suggest options. Claude cannot generate what you know. It can only use what you give it. The quality gap between slop and something real is not a gap in the model. It is the gap between what the operator knows and what they chose to insert. 6 months from now, the AI content landscape will divide cleanly into 2 categories. The first, content that is generically competent, technically correct, broadly applicable, aimed at no one in particular, fast to produce, indistinguishable from anything else in the category. This is what the slop loop produces at scale. The second, content that carries something specific, an actual reader held in mind throughout, a genuine position stated without hedging, a register chosen for the work rather than defaulted to. This is slower to initiate because it requires the operator to have done some thinking before Claude starts. And it produces work that is identifiably the operator's, not Claude's, not the average, not nobody's in particular. The divide is not about AI versus human. It is about whether the operator showed up. The operators who understand this early are building a quality advantage that does not erode as the models improve. The models can only get better at executing direction. They cannot provide it. The operator's slop check. Before you generate, answer 3 questions. If you can't answer them, you are not ready to generate. 1. Who is this actually for? Not the category, the specific person. What do they already know? What have they already tried? What do they believe that this piece will confirm, challenge, or extend? 2. What do I actually think? Not the balanced view, not the comprehensive overview. The thing I believe is true that most people in this space are not saying. If I don't have a position, I'm not ready. 3. What register does this work need? Not Claude's default. The register that serves this specific piece. If I can't name it, I'll get the base iteration. If all three are answered before generation begins, Slop is structurally unlikely. The output has somewhere to go that Claude could not have generated on its own. This episode connects forward and backward. It connects backward to the manifesto. The base iteration is what Claude produces when no direction has been applied. Slop is the base iteration at scale. The manifesto named the base iteration. This episode named what happens when nobody replaces it. It connects forward to the frame prompt episode. A frame prompt is one way to insert operator judgment before generation begins. The slop check and the frame prompt are the same move at different levels of precision. That's the episode. See you in the next one.